What's the reason for these ailments? What's the reason for these disabilities and sicknesses, diseases? Well, two reasons. Number one, the fallen world that we live in. The sin-filled world. When Adam and Eve sinned, entered disease and death. That's what our world is characterized by. The good news is there is no disease or sickness in heaven. It's gone. God takes it away. And that's what we're created to live in. We're created to live in this disease-filled world. We were created to live with health and life. Good news is in heaven, there's no sickness, death, or disease. And another piece of good news, I shared this with a gentleman from our church who he's at St. John's and just struggling towards the end of life, and his body's failing him. And I said, hey, I got good news for you. You got a new body on order. And I'm excited for that. My arm doesn't work very good, but I got a new body on order. It's coming. And there's people who live super healthy lives and eat this, like, I don't know what kind of diets you guys are on. I can't keep up with it. And your exercise, you're like running in the morning. And I'm like, I do that, but you know what? I got a new body coming, so I'll wait for that one, I'll join you jogging, but just let's wait for heaven, okay? Because it hurts a lot less, But we got new bodies coming that will be healed of our sickness and disease. That's good news. That's good news. What's the cause for these ailments? It's the sin-filled world that we live in. It's this broken world, and God's going to fix it. The second cause is that the enemy afflicts. He afflicts, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But I just want to mention one thing before that, is that in everything, that God is glorified. That through everything, God is glorified. And Paul knew that. He knew that. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. That is a really difficult verse for people to hear who just lost a loved one. And sometimes we'll throw that out at a funeral. God works for the good of you. And that's hard to hear. It's not palatable at times. But you know what? It is true. It is true that God works for our good. That God's not trying to afflict us. He's not trying to hurt us or harm us. As our Heavenly Father, he loves us deeply. And through the difficulties and through the pain, we get to see how great and how strong and how mighty he is. Let me tell you one of my favorite stories of Scripture. It's the story of Joseph. This is not Mary and Joseph. This is Joseph back in Genesis. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob. And Jacob, God changed his name. He used the name Jacob and Israel, interchangeable, okay? So the same guy, Jacob and Israel. Israel had 12 sons. Jacob's the 11th, and Jacob was one of his favorites. And Joseph was one of Jacob's favorites. And Jacob bought Joseph this beautiful coat, the coat of many colors, Technicolor dream coat, if you will, okay? And he was favored, and his brothers were jealous. They hated him for it because his dad favored him over the other brothers. And so one day they're out in the wilderness, and his brothers are like, hey, we're going to kill him. We're done with him. We're sick of daddy's favorite. He's dead. One of his brothers step in and is like, no, let's not kill him. Let's just sell him as a slave. And so Joseph is sold into the slave trade, later sold in Egypt to one of the officers of King Pharaoh of Egypt. And Joseph, in that, he's torn apart from his family, from his homeland, lost everything, living in this foreign land, in some household that he did not sign up for. But God was with him, and his hand was upon him, and he proved himself faithful and intelligent and trustworthy, and he rose up in responsibility. But one day, the officer that he was living with, his wife, tried to come on to him, tried to get Joseph to sleep with him. And Joseph, a man of integrity, said no. But later, she would accuse him of making advances toward her. So the head of his household threw him in prison. So now he's in prison in Egypt. But God's hand was upon him again, and God's favor is with him in prison, and he rises up in responsibility in prison. The prison warden puts him in charge of the whole prison, and we're thinking, oh, Joseph, God's with you. And Joseph's probably thinking, if God's with me, why am I in prison? Like, get me out of here. And for years, he's in prison, but miraculously, God delivers him from prison, elevates him to the second highest position in all of Egypt, just under Pharaoh. And he helps guide the nation of Egypt through a severe famine that made Egypt become wealthy because of his leadership. And his brothers come to him, and they're desperate. They know that they're about to lose everything. They're starving. And they come to Joseph, and Joseph shows them mercy. And Joseph says this to them, Genesis 50, verse 20. He says, you intended to harm me. You intended to harm me. But God intended it for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. You guys had ill intent, but God was going to work good through even the worst of circumstances. The enemy tried to take me out, but God used this for his plan and his purposes. And you might say, that's nice. Joseph had a great ending, but my ending doesn't end so well. There's no bow, no resurrection, no miraculous healing. And it might seem difficult, and it might seem hard, and it might seem like there's no answer. There's no reason for the loss or the tragedy. But what I want to tell you today is, do you see? Can you see? Can you see? When you look at your life, do you see what the cause of your ailments are? Do you know the cause of your distress, your anxiety, your depression, maybe even suicidal thoughts? Do you know why work is such a mess? Do you know why there's so much conflict in your life? So much disease, so much sexual content, so much division? Why is there so much war in our world? Do you see all the darkness? Do you see that life isn't roses? Do you understand that you have an enemy? Rewind to chapter 8. Chapter 8 of John says this, for you are the children of your father, the devil, and you love to do the evil things he does. He was a murderer from the beginning. He has always hated the truth because there's no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with his character, for he's a liar and the father of lies. So when I tell the truth, you just naturally don't believe me. Do you see people in our world being deceived? There's people lying and twisting the truth all around us. You see people trying to poke holes in our faith and in the Bible. Do you see Christians being hung out to dry, stepped on, persecuted, relegated, and belittled? There's a battle that's waging, a battle between good and evil. In the book of Job, we get a glimpse of this. Satan comes, and he comes before God. And God's like, what are you doing? And he says, I'm just roaming about the earth and going back and forth in it. What is he doing? He's causing havoc and destruction in the world. And he's moving all about the world, and that's his goal. He is afflicting people. And in Job, we see Satan can affect health, can take lives, and can take our livelihood. Satan can do that. And as we look at this world, that question I have again is, do we see it? Do we see where the nasty, the ugly, and the horrible comes from? Is that God afflicting me, or is that the enemy? Or is that just from the sin-filled world that I live in? John 8:12. In contrast to Satan, we have Jesus. Jesus spoke to people once more and said, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness because you have the light that leads to life. John 9:4, the night is coming and then no one can work. But while I'm here in the world, I am the light of the world. Jesus is the light that leads to life. And this references us back to the people of God, the Israelites. As God delivered them out of slavery in Egypt, He led them at night with a pillar of fire. And it guided the way through the wilderness. They didn't know where to go. They just followed the light that led to life, and that's Jesus. And he says, I'm here. Follow me, and I will lead you. I'll lead you. As kids, we used to love to play hide and seek tag. On the weekends, our parents would get together with their friends. They'd be upstairs in our house. They'd be playing rook or up and down the river, card games, and the kids would all go downstairs, and the boys would get on the stairs, and we would count. We'd turn off all the lights, and we'd play hide and seek tag. Girls go hide, we count, and then we go find them. And it'd get pretty competitive. And we would blaze around the basement until someone ran full speed into the ping pong table, right? Or they go through the pile of Legos, you know, like they're on Home Alone, stepping on Legos, you know? They'd run into walls or hit the door. Someone would be crying. And that's like life sometimes. Maybe that's you, that you're walking around or running around in the dark, and it's dangerous, and you can get hurt. And it can be scary at times. And it's scary for those who love us, who are watching us do this, as they watch us navigate through life from a distance. And here Jesus is saying, light is available. Light is available. I can illuminate the path for you. Every once in a while, in hide and seek tag, someone would find a flashlight and it would all break loose. They'd get a flashlight out and oh man, we'd have to get parents involved. There would be people would throw hands. It would get rough, right? It's like, put the flashlight away. That's cheating. And Jesus says the cheat code is here. It's like we're walking around in the dark in a maze, and He has full view of the maze. He has full view. And He's taking the flashlight and He's just lighting our way step by step. And man, do we wish that we could see the whole path. Man, it would be helpful. I don't even know if I want to take that next step, Jesus, because I don't know where it leads. And that's where we need to trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not on our own understanding. In all our ways, acknowledge Him, who He is, and He'll make the path straight. Wow. Do you see? Do you see? Can you see? Do you need Jesus to illuminate your path? Psalm 119 says this, your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Through the darkness of life, through the chaos and the craziness, through the disaster and destruction, here's Jesus with us to lead us through. He doesn't say, I'm going to heal every hurt this side of eternity. He's not gonna. We're going to have afflictions. But through it, we get to see Him. We get to see His hand and His power as He lights the way. Would you stand?